Tomorrow, The Flash is in cinemas. I got to see it a day early, and this is my quick review of The Flash, starring Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Sasha Cal, and Michael Shannon. So, first thing to know about The Flash is a superhero drama film um, brought to you by DC. And the director is Andre Muschietti, who directed It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2. And it's interesting to see one go from this kind of horror hiatus in It Chapter 1 to still getting love for It Chapter 2, but it's kind of dipping a bit. And then with this film, it's very sudden left turn for him, but he does a good job with it. So first thing to mention is the film is it's 2 hours and 35 minutes. It's a long film, but it doesn't feel that way. I remember being in the cinema watching this and thinking this is actually kind of funny. The film is more like a comedy, in all honesty. It's a very, and I know we have stuff like the Suicide Squad and Shazam in DC, but this feels right at home with them. But let's talk about the obvious Ezra Miller. Now, I'm not going into any of the controversies or rumors or court cases, as that's just not my deal on this channel. That's not any of my business. But I'm just looking at him from a performance aspect. So Ezra Miller plays the character The Flash, Barry Allen. And the plot revolves around him here. So essentially one of the core aspects of his Flash character is that he's lost both parents. And that's his kind of motivation. He wants to bring them back. He wants to have the life he's always dreamed of. But of course, you mess with time, you don't get very nice things. Or I guess if you mess with time, time won't tell the same story you think it will. That's just me trying to come up with some nonsense. Basic gist is that he does go back, changes the time limit, changes everything, even though he just wanted to change one small thing in the beginning, and he bumps into his alternative self, who is in this timeline, who many people have called an idiot. What do you think? That a 16-year-old Flash would be an idiot? Who would have guessed that? But no, the Flash, Jesus, Barry Allen 2.0, I'll call him for this review 6. This is not a spoiler, this is all in the trailers, by the way. Is kind of like the comedic relief, and he's a good foil to Barry Allen as we know him. Now, first thing I will mention before getting really in depth with the review and all that is this film will probably more than likely not get a sequel. It might, but I don't think DC intend to do so. And also, I want to address the fact that this film is, in many ways, a multiverse of madness film as well. And the film's it's not a film that's everyone's gonna universally love. It'll probably be one of those cult classic DC films that, some people love, some people hate. But at the same time, DC recently have just been hitting such a high standard. I don't know if y'all agree with me on that, but DC seem to have, they went from Suicide Squad 2016 to the Suicide Squad in 2021. And there's a huge gap. Now every DC film is up here at the moment. Okay, maybe not every single one, but majority of them are up at higher quality. And James Gunn's recently joined them. Okay, so anyways, let's get back into this. So the first thing I will mention is that this film's plot is very similar to Back to the Future. That's something that's very acknowledged by the creators. They make a few good jokes at that. And this film is like No Way Home in that sense as well. So if you've seen that, it's a crowd pleaser. This film's a crowd pleaser. Now, Ben Affleck is in the film briefly, and he does well what he's given, which in fairness is not a lot. This is The Flash. This is Barry Allen's film. This is Ezra Miller's film. This is, this is The Flash. We're not here to see Ben Affleck's Batman. But what's interesting about the film is that the film kind of plays into that kind of, do you want to fight crime alone thing, or can someone like the Flash deal with crime by himself? That's kind of one of the questions that starts. So let's start with the good on this film. The good is Ezra Miller actually turns in a really good performance as the Flash. He's obviously played this character back in Justice League. It is also important to notify the fact that this film, to go into it for you to like fully enjoy it, you kind of need to be aware of what's happened in previous DC films. So films like Zack Snyder's Justice League, you can check out. That's really the big one you need to look at in order to get his character. But there are probably a few DC pop-ups as well. But anyways, getting back to this, the film takes you through a multiverse that's comprehensible, but it also takes like these elements that they could explain like a few lines, and they explain like a full monologue almost. And again, this is a very funny film. There's some good humor to be had here. I know it had my audience laughing, which is unusual for my audience. They don't usually say anything. But here, the film works on its own terms. It's not restricted to anything. It kind of works anyway you look at it. Obviously, critics and some audience members will be a bit kind of paused by that. Besides that, like, the film is, it's an enjoyable watch, a crowd pleaser of a film that I think most people enjoy. And I'd like to also mention that the film is a bit too long. Also, on the topic of the film being funny, it has some really good visual gags, as in visual humor. Some stuff they probably pulled from like Edgar Wright. There's a few scenes that remind me of his like visual style. Probably more of a reference than anything, but if you know, you know. But the film's kind of two main leads are both played by Ezra Miller. You have the Flash that we know, and the Flash from the alternate dimension. They kind of are our main two leads of the film. And you'd think the villain's Zod, but he's more of a distraction, I would say. The film kind of plays out of this kind of mental battle almost that Barry has going on for himself. And of course we have Michael Keaton, who doesn't enjoy a bit of Michael Keaton, and he's really good in the film. But I would say that his character returning, it wasn't pointless. I'll give him that. There was a point to it, but it felt almost like that they looked at Michael Keaton's Batman and went, "Jesus, we haven't done you in a good few years now, haven't we? When was the last time you were in a superhero movie? Oh, 2017. We must bring you back." And like you have to wonder, like, his scenes, like, they are fun, they are entertaining, but some of them you felt could have just done with a bit of editing and retrimming. The film is a bit too long. It's like, on the positive side, it's a well-paced, well-done, well-directed action film. It is well edited. Like, they are kind of like the biggest positives I can give it. You know, everyone kind of brings their A game here, the costume departments. But the first thing I'll say about that's mixed about the film, the CGI. There are a few scenes in here I was like, I know that's CGI. What's going on? This is a 200 million. This is a nearly $220 million production. Like, what's going on? How does, like, how do a few films that don't even have access to CGI look more realistic? What's going on? And there's a few scenes where if you're looking for like that, you'll find it. But the film's also, again, runtime kind of plays into the mixed aspect. Because on the one hand, it is this big story that needs a big runtime. But at the same time, it is a film that could do with a trim down on a few scenes. There are a few scenes that went on. Another mixed element of the film is the fact that there are two Barry Allens. I could get why people call him an idiot. He can be kind of very loose, but this is kind of Barry Allen's early years, and it wouldn't surprise me if that's what their intention was, kind of show off. Barry's kind of, what's a good word for this? Barry's kind of tendency to like talk really quickly and to be constantly talking and doesn't really. It's kind of like Barry's going back, looking at himself a few years ago, and this is what he was. But besides that, that's the mix. Negative is the film. This goes between mixed and negative, but it is kind of too long. It's too long for its own plot. Oh, I also want to give a quick shout out to the actress who plays Supergirl, Sasha Calle, who does a really good job. Hollywood didn't make her invincible. Cheers to that one. But also the film doesn't rely on nostalgia as much as say other films might. And that's not an entirely negative thing, but I do think the film could have done with a bit more kind of familiarity of it. That's kind of my take. And you know, some scenes with Michael Keaton don't really work as well for his like character of Batman. And the graphics get questionable sometimes. But besides that, it should be a fun little adventure for anyone looking to see a film that has a well enough story, that has enough cast and crew to, well, it also has that controversy, but we're not really talking about that. And yeah, the film, it's a fun time at the cinemas, but it's not like the best film of the year. Maybe it'll grow on me, but I don't know. So this is definitely a C if you like the film, and I'd say out of 10 probably be like an 8. It is a great film. There's just a few issues weighing it down a bit more than it than they should. But besides that, yeah, the film is a good time at cinemas, fun time. It's one of DC's better films. So let's go at 2016. Anyways, that's my review for The Flash done. Hopefully I'll see the next big one. You can probably comment down below what one you want me to see next. Hopefully I can get to it. And I shall see you in the next video.